Good evening, and welcome to Context News. That's right, this is Context News, not the bullshit you get from all the other networks, because here, we're not just going to give you what's happening or some skewed version of what's happening. We're going to give you what's happening, but also the context that's at the nature of what's happening and the language that underlies the context itself. It's a new day for a new kind of news, so welcome to Context News. I want to get right into it and said, okay, it's news. And where I always start is, well, let's break down the language, let's break down the word and see what the hell are we actually talking about. So, especially when you talk about news, well, that's such an obvious term, like news, everybody uses it. Why would you have to define it or break it down or look it up or get the root? But we do here because that's how we roll here at Context News. And so I looked up the definition of news. Now, this is pretty awesome. So do you know what the definition of news is? Are you ready? Are you ready for your first piece of news here at Context News? What's the definition of news? The definition of news is plural of new. It's new with an S. That's it. So if we were only going to give you one thing, if I was going to give you one piece of information that you hadn't heard before, I'd say welcome to the evening new. So you have new number one and new number two, and together they are news. Very wonderful. All right, so then I thought, well, this whole thing about news, you know, and information and knowledge and all of that stuff with the news network, I thought, let's go, where should we start? Where should we go in this whole exploration of the wild and wonderful world of news? Well, let's go right to the top. And right to the top is the New York Times. The New York Times is arguably the pinnacle of journalistic reporting on what's happening in our world. So I thought, let's go right here. And I actually went out and shelled out $5, $5, can you imagine, for the Sunday edition of the New York Times. Now, that f***er's heavy, I'm telling you. It's just like a goddamn encyclopedia, it's so heavy. But I bought it. Went to my favorite coffee shop and got my nice cup of coffee. As such, see, we call that a reenactment. And just started reading. And finally, around, the 10th article or so, I stopped. And I thought, you know what? What am I doing? What am I doing? Now, obviously, I know what I'm doing. I'm reading the newspaper. But I mean, really, what's happening? What's happening with this time? What's happening in this time that all of this information is going from the newspaper into my brain? What's actually happening? What is happening? Well, one thing is, some of the articles I read, and I read an article, and I get upset. It upsets me. So, okay, so what that produced was I got upset. And then it gives me some things to not care about, and so I dismissed them. And then there were things that I was kind of resigned about, and then there were things that just didn't have anything to do with me, so they were just kind of didn't even register at all. That's boring. So one thing it gives me is it gives me a multitude of reactions depending on what I happen to be reading. It also gives me its kind of conversation. Mort. Hey, Mort, did you see that the president or premier? Are you aware of how it's called of Uganda is planning on enacting this sweeping anti-gay legislation in American cities? You know, and then you can kind of get into a dialogue and be in conversation with people about what's happening. But so what? I mean, what is that? And then I thought, well, I wonder what these journalists that spend all this time out there, you know, going all over the world and doing whatever they've got to do to collect the information, and I wonder what they're intending from all of their work, what they think the impact of all this reporting is, and maybe they don't think there's any impact at all, that they just report it because that's what their job is, and they just assume that, you know, somebody's going to read it and ingest it into their brain. Maybe the point of the newspaper is just to get read. Maybe it's to sell advertising, because there's a lot of advertising, let me tell you, in the New York Times. And so maybe they just hook you with one of these catchy headlines so that you'll find out what is going on at Macy's. You know, who knows? But I know when I did get down to it, when I got right down to the bare bones of what actually is happening, is that all of this information, this text, these words, went from the page where they were doing nothing was happening, to going into my brain. and what it's doing in my brain as the information itself is also nothing. So it went from here, nothing happening, and just switched location to here, nothing happening. So nothing really happened. It's just a transference of information. But what's actually happening? What's the purpose of it? What do I have as a result of this transference of information other than more information? And the answer was nothing. They'd say, well, you know, it's better to be informed. It's better to be informed. You know, an informed person is a powerful person, or it's just, you know, you want to keep up on what's happening in the day. And why? Why? I mean, we've got all this multitude of information with the newspapers and the internet and television and CNN and everything. I mean, my God, does having all this information really do anything? Or maybe it's not intended to do anything. It's just about, let's all get informed. We wanted to get into what's this whole information deal? What is this information? Ah, there we go. Information is facts or details about a subject, period. So what's ever in here? Facts or details. Now anything that isn't facts or details, and anything that's in here that's subjective, that has any kind of a slant to it, any kind of a bias, any kind of an opinion, any kind of an interpretation is not information. Information is the message, utterance, or expression being conveyed. Now you don't just have the information, but there's this process of conveyance. As the text goes from here to my brain, there's a process of conveyance. And there's a lot happening in here that has a lot to do with how it actually lands over here. Now, there's that saying that knowledge is power, right? Horseshit. Knowledge is not power. Knowledge is knowledge, period. When I got into this started to research knowledge, this was the best thing I found. Listen to this. No single agreed upon definition of knowledge exists. No single agreed upon definition of knowledge exists. Though there are numerous theories to explain it, because you know everybody's out there so damn clear about what knowledge is when in truth there's no single agreed upon definition. Plato famously defined knowledge as justified true belief. It doesn't have to be what's actually there, it's just that it's a justified true belief. Plato specifies that a statement after statement after statement must be justified, it must be true, and it must be believed. See, what you know is very different than what's actually happening. Information and knowledge, they are not at all the same. See, 10 people could read the statements in here. 10 people could read the bits of information. And you could walk away with 10 different knowings, 10 different what's known. Information only becomes knowledge by virtue of what happens with it once you get it. There's something that happens in the conveyance of it between the source and my brain that has it become what's known. What we're tending to in the world has a lot more to do with what's known than the actual information, and that is at the heart of, or one of the pieces at the heart of, what we're really out to delve into and explore and illuminate here at Context News. You know, back in the day, the earth was flat and everybody knew it. And the earth was flat because everybody knew it. Maybe. It was unquestioned and it was definitely justified, true, and believed. Wittgenstein observed, following Moore's paradox, that one can say he believes it, but it isn't so. But not, he knows it, but it isn't so. Come on. So anyway, I'm very excited. And again, this is kind of just getting into what the heck Context News is all about, what we're all about here, what the services we're out to provide. And it is a distinct service that is not, you're not getting this anywhere else but Context News, and you are going to get it here. In future segments, future episodes, we'll actually be reporting actual events, but we'll be reporting them from the linguistic nature of the event and what that then leaves us with in terms of possible responses to the events themselves. And so welcome to Context News. We are really launching something very, very, very exciting here, and I'm thrilled to have you with me and as we embark on this adventure together. This is Laughlin Artz, and that's that.